The funeral director kept asking about the caskets, open or closed, as if it mattered, as if Rebecca would care whether strangers saw what the accident had done to her face. Closed, I said. Both of them. My sister Nora touched my arm. Good choice, Don. Better that way. Before we continue, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories reach. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe. New stories every day. I nodded because nodding required less energy than speaking.
Rebecca was 38. Tyler was 41. The highway patrol said the semi crossed the median at 11:47 p.m. on Interstate 94, just outside Milwaukee. No survivors. Clean impact, the officer said, like that was supposed to comfort me. The viewing room smelled like lilies and furniture polish.
Rebecca's co-workers from the marketing firm came through in clusters, murmuring condolences I wouldn't remember. Tyler's brother Owen flew in from Phoenix, red-eyed and silent. He shook my hand once, hard, then stood in the corner for 2 hours without speaking to anyone. Nora stayed close. She'd always been protective, my younger sister by 3 years. Though lately protection felt more like management. She intercepted people before they reached me, filtered questions, made decisions about flowers and reception food and memorial cards. "You need to think about the apartment," she said during a lull, her voice low. "What apartment?" "Their apartment, in Chicago. Someone needs to clear it out, get it listed." I stared at the closed casket. Rebecca's casket, my daughter's casket. I didn't know they had an apartment in Chicago. Nora's expression shifted, something crossing her face too quickly to read. Of course they did. The one near Wicker Park. Rebecca mentioned it. She told me a friend rented it, that they stayed there sometimes. Well, Nora adjusted her black scarf. Either way, it needs handling. I can take care of it if you want. Get a realtor. Handle the paperwork. Let me think about it. Don't think too long. Market's good right now. These things are easier when you move fast. The next morning, a woman called while I was making coffee in my kitchen in Evanston. The mug in my hand had belonged to Rebecca when she was in college. Northwestern Dad in purple letters, handle chipped from the dishwasher. "Mr. Marsh, this is Patricia Fleming from Fleming Properties. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you. I'm calling about the property at 847 North Wood Street, the 8th floor unit. I have the keys from the building management, and I wanted to coordinate access for the listing." I set the mug down carefully. "I'm sorry, what property?" A pause. "The condo, in Chicago. It's registered to you, Mr. Marsh. Has been since 2008. The kitchen window showed my backyard, November bare trees against gray sky. A squirrel ran along the fence line, normal Tuesday morning in a week that had stopped being normal. I don't own a condo in Chicago. I'm looking at the deed right now. Donald Marsh, purchased October 2008. Title held individually. The management company has been sending statements to this address for years. I never got any statements. That's unusual, but the records are clear. You're listed as the sole owner. I assumed you'd want to discuss selling given the circumstances. My coffee had gone cold. I poured it down the sink, watched it spiral away. "Can you send me the paperwork?" "Of course. I'll courier it today." "And Mr. Marsh, the keys. Would you like me to drop them off, or would you prefer to pick them up?" "Drop them off." She arrived that afternoon in a gray sedan, handed me a manila envelope through my front door. Inside, a set of keys on a plain ring, a property deed with my signature at the bottom, and a typed cover letter on Fleming Properties letterhead. I didn't remember signing the deed, but there it was, my signature, dated October 14th, 2008. Witness signatures I didn't recognize. Notary stamp from a Chicago office. Rebecca had been 22, fresh out of college, struggling to find work during the recession. She'd called me crying one night, said she found a condo she loved but couldn't get approved for a mortgage. Could I help? Just with the paperwork. Just to get started, she'd take over payments as soon as she got a real job. I'd driven to Chicago the next weekend, signed papers at a title company while Rebecca sat beside me, squeezing my hand. "Thank you, Daddy. I'll pay you back. I promise." The title company had been in a strip mall near O'Hare. Fluorescent lights, stale coffee, a woman with red fingernails guiding my hand across signature lines. Rebecca had kissed my cheek afterward. Tyler had been waiting in the car. That was 16 years ago. I'd never been inside the condo. Rebecca always said it was easier to meet at restaurants when I visited. The place was small, parking was terrible. Maybe next time. I spread the papers on my kitchen table. The deed. A property tax statement from 2023 showing $4,800 paid. A management company letter about routine building maintenance. All sent to my address in Evanston. All dated within the last 6 months. My mail came to a box at the end of my driveway. I'd collected it myself for 30 years after my wife died. Every day, rain or snow or heat, I walked down and brought it back. Bills, catalogs, circulars, jury duty summons. I'd never seen any of these documents. Nora called at 6. Did you decide about the apartment? I'm going to see it first. Don't. Why bother? I can handle. I'm going to see it, Nora. Silence. Then, when? Tomorrow. I'll come with you. No. Don, you shouldn't be alone right now. Let me help. I need to do this myself. Another pause, longer. Call me after. Let me know what you find. I hung up before she could say more. That night I sat in my living room with the lights off, keys in my hand. They were old keys, worn at the edges, the kind that had been copied and recopied. The brass caught streetlight from the window. My daughter had lived some part of her life in a place I'd never seen, in a space I apparently owned but had never entered. Outside, a car passed. Headlights swept across the ceiling. The Northwestern mug sat on the side table, still empty. I should have washed it. Should have done a lot of things. The keys felt heavy, heavier than keys should feel. I closed my fist around them and waited for morning. The blue line from O'Hare to Chicago takes 45 minutes. I sat near the back, keys in my coat pocket, watching the city assemble itself through scratched windows. Industrial zones gave way to residential blocks, then the dense grid of downtown. Other passengers ignored me. A student with headphones, a woman in scrubs, a man reading something on his phone. All of us moving towards separate destinations, none of them as strange as mine. I got off at Damen Avenue. The air smelled like cold concrete and distant coffee. November in Chicago felt different than November in Evanston. Sharper somehow. More anonymous. 847. North Wood Street was a 6-story brick building with retail on the ground floor. A coffee shop, a dry cleaner, a store selling vintage clothing. The entrance was between the coffee shop and the cleaner, a gray door with an intercom panel. I found Unit 8F on the directory. Pressed the button. No answer. I used the key. The lobby was small, mailboxes on one wall, elevator on the other. Someone had left a bicycle chained to the radiator. The elevator was old, the kind with an accordion gate you had to close manually. It lurched upward with a grinding sound that made me think of my father's garage. 8th floor. The hallway had worn carpet and overhead lights that flickered. 3 units, 8D, 8E, 8F. I walked to the end. The door to 8F was painted dark green, slightly scuffed near the handle. No nameplate, no decoration. I stood there for maybe 2 minutes. A door opened behind me, 8D, and a woman came out with a garbage bag. She glanced at me, nodded, kept moving toward the stairs. The sound of her footsteps faded. I put the key in the lock. It turned easily. The door opened. The apartment was small, maybe 600 square feet. Kitchen immediately to the left, living area straight ahead, bedroom door visible beyond. The furniture was cheap but functional. IKEA couch in gray fabric, coffee table with water rings, television on a particle board stand. The walls were beige. The carpet was beige. Nothing on the walls except a calendar from a pizza delivery place, still showing October. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. It didn't smell like Rebecca. That was the first thing I noticed. Rebecca wore jasmine perfume, the same brand since high school. This apartment smelled like nothing, like a hotel room after housekeeping. I walked through slowly. The kitchen had 2 coffee mugs in the drying rack, generic white ceramic. The refrigerator held milk, eggs, butter, a 6-pack of beer missing 2 bottles. Normal things, the kind of things anyone would have. But none of it was Rebecca's. The bedroom confused me more. The bed was made with a blue comforter I'd never seen. The closet held clothes on hangers. Men's button-down shirts, size medium. Women's jeans, size 8. Rebecca wore size 4. The nightstand had a paperback thriller with a bookmark halfway through. Rebecca only read literary fiction. I sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress was firm. Through the window I could see other buildings, fire escapes, a slice of sky going darker. A pigeon landed on the sill, looked at me, flew away. This wasn't Rebecca's apartment. This was someone else's life. I opened the nightstand drawer. Phone charger. Receipts from restaurants. A lease agreement folded in thirds. I unfolded it carefully. The paper was crisp, recently printed. Lease term, September 1st, 2024 to February 28th, 2025. Monthly rent, $2,100. Tenant, Sarah Chen. Landlord, Compass Holdings, LLC. Compass Holdings, LLC. I read it 3 times. Not Rebecca's name, not Tyler's, not mine. I stood up and walked back to the kitchen, looked in the drawers, takeout menus, scissors. A stack of unopened mail addressed to Sarah Chen, more receipts. And underneath, in the back of the drawer, a manila folder. I pulled it out. Inside, more lease agreements. Different names, different dates. Marcus Johnson, July 2023 to December 2023. $2,100 per month. Priya Mehta, January 2023 to June 2023. $2,100 per month. David Torres, August 2022 to December 2022. $2,000 per month. I kept going. 6 years of leases, tenant after tenant, all paying rent to Compass Holdings LLC, all living in an apartment I apparently owned but had never seen. I did the math in my head. Rough numbers. 6 years, average $2,000 per month. Around $144,000. Maybe more. Money flowing somewhere. Money that should have been mine if this property was really mine. But I'd never received a check. Never seen a deposit. Never signed a property management agreement. The apartment door opened behind me. I turned. A woman stood in the doorway. Late 20s, Asian, wearing scrubs with a hospital ID badge clipped to the collar. She had grocery bags in both hands. Her face went from neutral to confused to frightened in the space of 2 seconds. "Who are you?" Her voice was steady, but her hands tightened on the bags. "Donald Marsh. I'm the owner of this property." "No, the owner is Compass Holdings. I pay them every month." I held up the lease agreement. "You pay them, but I own the deed. I have the title documents." She set the grocery bags down slowly. Her eyes moved to the folder in my other hand. "You're going through my things. These aren't your things. These are lease agreements from 6 years of tenants. I don't know what you're talking about. Your name is Sarah Chen. You've been living here since September. Before you, it was Marcus Johnson. Before him, Priya Mehta. Before her—" "Stop," she raised one hand. "Just stop. I have a lease. A legal lease. I pay rent on time every month. I don't know who you are or what you want, but you need to leave. This apartment belongs to me. The deed is in my name." "Then why haven't I ever seen you? Why does Compass Holdings handle everything?" Good question. The best question. I sat down at the small kitchen table. My legs felt unreliable. My daughter died 2 weeks ago, her and her husband. Car accident. The realtor called me about this property. I didn't know it existed until then. Sarah's expression shifted. Still wary, but something else underneath. "Your daughter?" "Rebecca Marsh. She was 38. I'm sorry. Did you ever meet her? Did anyone from Compass Holdings ever come here in person?" "No. Everything was by email. I found the listing on Craigslist, sent my information, got approved, picked up keys from the building manager. All digital." "Who did you send rent to?" "Compass Holdings. I have a Zelle account. I send $2,100 on the 1st of every month." "To what email address?" She pulled out her phone, scrolled, turned it toward me. "This one. Compass Properties 2018 Gmail.com. I took a photo of it with my own phone. Have you ever had any problems? Maintenance issues? Anything that required someone to come here? The heater stopped working in January. I emailed. Someone came and fixed it. Guy in a uniform. Said he was from the management company. He was here maybe 20 minutes. Do you remember his name?" "No. He didn't really talk. Just fixed the heater and left." I looked around the apartment again. Small, clean, impersonal. The kind of place someone could live in without ever really living in it. How much security deposit did you pay? $4,200, 2 months. I nodded. Math still running. Deposits from 6 years of tenants. Maybe $40,000 or more just sitting somewhere, in addition to the monthly rent. All of it going to Compass Holdings LLC. All of it stolen from me. Ms. Chen, I'm not going to kick you out tonight. Your lease is valid until February, but after that, things are going to change. Change how? I'm going to find out who's been running Compass Holdings, and then I'm going to make sure they don't do this to anyone else. She studied my face. You really didn't know about any of this? Not until 3 days ago. Your daughter. She was the one who set this up? I stood, folded the lease agreements back into the folder. I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Sarah picked up her grocery bags. For what it's worth, I hope you do. This place seemed too good to be true when I found it. I guess it was. I walked to the door, stopped. If anyone from Compass Holdings contacts you, will you let me know? Yes. Thank you. I took the elevator down. The accordion gate rattled. 8th floor to ground floor. The bicycle was still chained to the radiator in the lobby. Outside, the street looked the same as when I'd arrived. Coffee shop, dry cleaner, vintage clothing store. Normal afternoon in a normal neighborhood. But my daughter had built something here. A system. A structure designed to extract money from a property I owned without me ever knowing. And someone had helped her. Someone had created Compass Holdings LLC. Someone had placed the listings. Someone had collected the deposits and the rent and hidden it all. I walked toward the Blue Line station. The sky was going dark. My phone buzzed. Nora. Don, did you see the apartment? Yes. And? It's complicated. What does that mean? It means I need to do some research before I talk about it. Don, I can help. I used to work in real estate, remember? I know how. I'll call you tomorrow. I hung up, descended into the subway. The train came after 6 minutes. I sat in the same seat I'd used that morning. The city disassembled itself in reverse. Dense grid to residential blocks to industrial zones to airport. In my pocket, my phone buzzed again. Nora, probably. I didn't look. I had the lease agreements. I had the Gmail address. I had 6 years of tenant names. Somewhere in that information was an answer. Somewhere in that stack of paper was proof of what Rebecca had done. And proof of who had helped her do it. I didn't go home that night. Couldn't face the empty house in Evanston, the kitchen with Rebecca's college mug still sitting on the counter, the living room where I'd sat holding keys that unlocked someone else's life. Instead, I checked into a Motel 6 off Interstate 90. $68 a night. The room smelled like industrial cleaner and had a painting of a lighthouse bolted to the wall. The bed was hard. The heater clanked. Through the window I could see the parking lot and beyond it, the highway, red taillights streaming south. I spread the lease agreements on the small desk, turned on the lamp. The bulb flickered twice before holding steady. 6 years of names, 6 years of deposits and monthly payments. I wrote it all down on motel stationery, columns of numbers that made my chest tight. Marcus Johnson, 6 months, $12,600 in rent, $4,200 deposit. Priya Mehta, 6 months, $12,600 in rent, $4,200 deposit. David Torres, 5 months, $10,000 in rent, $4,000 deposit. The list went on. Some tenants stayed 6 months. Some stayed 8. One stayed only 3, but they all paid. Every month. Money disappearing into Compass Holdings LLC like water down a drain. Total rent collected over 6 years, $151,200. Total deposits, approximately $42,000. Grand total, $193,200, nearly $200,000, gone. I sat back in the plastic chair and looked at the numbers until they blurred. Rebecca had been living in a house in suburban New Jersey. Nice place, according to the funeral program. Tyler worked in pharmaceutical sales. They drove decent cars, took vacations to Florida and California, posted photos on Facebook of restaurant meals and beach sunsets. And the whole time, every month, money flowed from an apartment I owned into accounts I'd never seen. My phone rang. Nora again. I let it go to voicemail. She'd called 4 times since I hung up on her that afternoon. Each voicemail started the same way. Don, please call me back. I didn't want to call her back. Not yet. Not until I knew more. The lease agreement showed tenant names and dates, but they didn't show bank accounts. Didn't show where the money went after it left the tenant's Zelle accounts. For that, I needed access to Compass Holdings' financial records, which meant I needed Rebecca's laptop. Sarah Chen had mentioned seeing it in the apartment, sitting on the bedroom desk. Rebecca's laptop. Silver MacBook. Probably password protected. Probably full of answers I didn't want. I lay down on the motel bed without undressing. Stared at the ceiling. The heater clanked. A truck passed on the highway. Engine noise rising and falling like a wave. My daughter had stolen from me for 6 years. Systematically. Carefully. With enough planning to set up an LLC, create fake email addresses, manage a rotation of tenants. That took intelligence, organization, commitment. It also took help. I closed my eyes but didn't sleep. At 6:30 a.m. I showered, dressed in yesterday's clothes, and drove back to Chicago. The city looked different in early morning light. Softer somehow. The coffee shop on the ground floor of 847 North Wood Street was just opening. I bought black coffee in a paper cup and waited in my car until 8 a.m. Sarah Chen left for work at 8:15, wearing different scrubs, carrying a thermos. I waited until she turned the corner, then used my key to enter the building. The apartment looked the same as yesterday. Beige walls, gray couch, calendar still showing October. I walked directly to the bedroom. The laptop was on the desk, exactly where Sarah said. Silver MacBook Air, a few years old. I opened it. The screen lit up showing a password prompt and a user account name, Rebecca Marsh. Of course it was password protected, but I'd set up this laptop for Rebecca 4 years ago when her old one died. I'd created the initial user account. I'd used my standard password format, a word, a number, a symbol. I tried. Autumn 2020, incorrect password. I tried. Rebecca 20, incorrect password. 3 more attempts, and the laptop would lock me out for an hour. I sat back. Thought about Rebecca at 22, fresh out of college, crying on the phone about the condo she loved. Thought about Rebecca at 30, posting vacation photos. Thought about Rebecca at 38, dead in a car on Interstate 94. I tried. Compass 2018. The laptop unlocked. The desktop background was a photo of Rebecca and Tyler at someone's wedding. They were smiling. They looked happy. They looked like people who weren't running a systematic fraud operation. I opened the email application. Rebecca's Gmail account loaded automatically, already logged in. Thousands of emails. I scrolled through the folders. Promotions, social, updates, and one folder labeled CH, tucked between others. CH, Compass Holdings. I clicked it. 83 emails, the oldest from October 2018, the most recent from 3 weeks before Rebecca died. I started reading. October 14th, 2018, from Compass Properties 2018 A Gmail. Com2, Rebecca Marsh. Armigmail. Com subject. Set up complete LLC registered in Delaware. Bank account opened at Chase. First listing goes live tomorrow. I'll handle tenant screening. You collect deposits. 50-50 split as agreed. Make sure your dad never checks his mail personally. Those property tax bills come to his address. NN. Not Tyler. Not some anonymous business partner. N. I scrolled down. More emails. Back and forth. Plans. Strategies. Division of Labor. January 8th, 2019. From Rebecca Marsh. Megmail. Com. 2. Compass Properties Waiting Teening. Gmail. Com. Subject. January tenant. Sarah's deposit cleared. $4,200. I'll transfer your half tomorrow. This is working better than I thought. Dad still hasn't noticed anything. March 22nd, 2020. From Compass Properties 2018 A Gmail. Com. 2. Rebecca Marsh. Eggmail. Com. Subject. COVID situation. Tenant wants rent reduction. I told him no. If he breaks lease, we keep deposit and find someone new. This is why we always get 2 months up front. Your dad asked me about property values yesterday. I changed the subject. Be more careful when you talk to him. On August 11th, 2022. From Rebecca Marsh, Magmail. Com. To Compass Properties 2018 Gmail. Com. Subject. Inspection building manager wants to do unit inspection. I told him we'll schedule it. Make sure nothing connects back to Dad. If anyone asks, we're property managers hired by the owner. Total revenue so far, $168,400. Your cut, $80,200. Not bad for 4 years. I stopped reading. The coffee had gone cold in my hand. Through the bedroom window I could see a gray sky, clouds moving fast. A pigeon landed on the fire escape, hopped twice, flew away. Nora. My sister had been Rebecca's partner. Not just helping, not just aware, actively participating. 50% of everything. $84,200 over 4 years. Maybe more in the final 2 years. I scrolled to the most recent email in the folder. October 18th, 2024. From Compass Properties, 2018, Gmail. Com, to, Rebecca Marsh. Mail. Come subject. Exit strategy. We should start thinking about how to end this. Dad's getting older. If something happens to him, the estate gets messy. Better to close down Compass, transfer the deed to you legally, than you own it free and clear. I know a lawyer who can handle it quietly. Costs maybe $5,000, but worth it for peace of mind. Let me know. We've had a good run. End dated 5 days before Rebecca died. I closed the laptop, sat very still. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Nora had been calling me every day since the funeral, offering to help, offering to handle the apartment, offering to take care of everything so I wouldn't have to worry. She wanted to get to this laptop, wanted to clean out the apartment before I saw it, wanted to erase every trace of Compass Holdings before I could piece together what they'd done, and she'd almost succeeded. My phone buzzed. Text message from Nora. Don, I'm worried. Please call me. We need to talk about the apartment. I looked at the message for a long time. Then I opened my phone's notes app and typed, evidence of fraud. Nora, partner with Rebecca since 2018. Split $193s and $200. Plan to transfer deed. I took photos of the laptop screen. Every email in the CH folder. 83 photos. Then I logged into my own email and sent them all to myself with the subject line, backup, do not delete. The photos uploaded slowly. Hotel Wi-Fi through my phone's hotspot. 6%, 15%, 28%. While I waited, I opened desk drawers, found more receipts, more lease agreements, and in the bottom drawer, a Chase bank statement for an account in the name of Compass Holdings LLC. Current balance, $47,380. Recent transactions, rent deposits from tenants, regular transfers out to 2 personal accounts, one labeled RM account, one labeled NH account. Rebecca Marsh, Nora Hartwell, Nora's married name before her divorce. $47,000. Just sitting there. Money that should have been paying my property taxes. Money that should have been mine. The photos finished uploading. 100% complete. I closed the laptop, put it in my car, drove back to the motel. In my room, I sat on the bed and called a number I hadn't used in 15 years. Mark Stedman, tax attorney. We'd worked together back when I was still doing accounting full-time, before I retired. He answered on the 3rd ring. Donald Marsh. It's been a while. I need help, Mark. Legal help. What kind of trouble are we talking about? The kind involving a secret LLC, 6 years of unreported rental income, and fraud committed by my dead daughter and my very alive sister. A pause. You'd better come to my office. When? How about today? I checked out of the motel at noon, left the key on the desk. Drove into downtown Chicago with Rebecca's laptop on the passenger seat and a folder full of lease agreements in the back. The sky was low and gray. It looked like snow. Mark's office was in the Loop, 34th floor, windows facing Lake Michigan. He was older than I remembered. Gray hair, reading glasses on a chain. He poured coffee without asking if I wanted any and gestured to a chair. Tell me everything. So I did. Mark Stedman listened without interrupting. I talked for 40 minutes straight, laying out the timeline, the amounts, the emails. When I finished, he removed his reading glasses and set them on the desk between us. Your sister stole from you for 6 years, he said. In legal terms, that's conversion of property, tax fraud, and possibly wire fraud if any money crossed state lines digitally. What can I recover? Depends. The 47,780 in the Compass Holdings account. That we can freeze immediately. File an emergency motion claiming rightful ownership. You're the deed holder. You never authorized the LLC to operate on your property. Strong case. And the rest? The money already spent? Mark leaned back in his chair. Harder. We'd need to prove what went where. Bank records, tax returns, financial statements. Discovery process could take months. And if Nora spent it all, you're chasing money that doesn't exist anymore. Through the window behind him, Lake Michigan stretched flat and gray to the horizon. A boat moved across the water, small and white against the dark surface. What about criminal charges? I asked. That's up to you. We report to the IRS first. They'll want their cut of that unreported income. Then we decide if you want to pursue charges through the state's attorney. Tax evasion, fraud, theft by deception. Nora could face prison time. She's my sister. She's also a thief. I looked at my hands. 66 years old, worked as an accountant for 40 years. Paid my taxes, followed the rules, raised a daughter who turned those rules into a weapon against me. What do you recommend? I asked. Financially? Freeze the account today. Recover what we can. File an IRS report documenting the unreported rental income that protects you from liability. Civilly, sue Nora for conversion and unjust enrichment. Force her to account for every dollar. And criminally? Mark put his glasses back on. That's not a financial decision, Donald. That's a personal one. Do you want your sister in prison? I didn't answer. Think about it, Mark said. For now, let's focus on securing the money that's still accessible. I'll draft the emergency motion today. We'll file tomorrow morning. With luck, we'll have that account frozen by end of week. How much will this cost? $5,000 retainer, more if we go to trial. But Donald, you're looking at potentially recovering $50,000 or more. The math works. I wrote him a check from my personal account. The pen felt heavy. My signature looked shaky. One more thing, Mark said as I stood to leave. Don't contact Nora, don't warn her, don't tell her what you found. The moment she knows you're onto her, she'll empty that account and disappear. We need the element of surprise. She's been calling me every day. Let it go to voicemail. If she shows up at your house, don't answer the door. Can you do that? I nodded. Yes. Good. I'll call you tomorrow after we file. I drove back to Evanston in silence. No radio, no podcast, just the sound of the engine and the tires on cold pavement. The sky had darkened. First snow of the season was coming. Maybe tonight. Maybe tomorrow. At home, the mailbox at the end of the driveway was full. I pulled out the stack. Grocery store circulars, credit card offers, a property tax bill for 847 North Wood Street, Chicago, IL. Amount due, $4,800. Payment deadline, December 31st. I'd never seen this bill before, never received any of them, according to the tax records Mark and I reviewed. 6 years of property tax bills, all supposedly sent to my address. I walked slowly up the driveway. Nora's car was parked in front of my house. She sat on my front porch, wrapped in a dark blue coat, hands in her pockets. When she saw me, she stood. Dawn. Finally. I'd been waiting an hour. I unlocked the front door without speaking. She followed me inside. You've been avoiding me, she said. Ever since you went to the apartment. What's going on? I set my keys on the hall table. Nothing's going on. Don't lie to me. Something's wrong. You won't return my calls. You won't tell me what you found. Did something happen with the tenants? Building violations? There are no tenants. The apartment was empty. A flicker of something crossed her face. Relief, maybe. Or calculation. So you can sell it clean. That's good. I know a realtor who... I'm not selling it yet. Why not? Because I need to understand what Rebecca was doing with it first. What do you mean what she was doing with it? She was living there, with Tyler. I looked at her directly. Rebecca never lived there, Nora. Neither did Tyler. That apartment has been rented to strangers for 6 years. Different people every few months, all paying rent to a company called Compass Holdings. Nora's face went very still. That doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense. Someone set up an LLC. Someone collected rent from my property. Someone made sure I never saw any of it. Who would do that? You tell me. She stared at me. You think I was involved? I know you were involved. I found the emails, Nora. All of them. Rebecca kept everything. Every conversation. Every plan. Every split of the money. The color drained from her face. She sat down heavily on my couch. Don, don't. My voice came out harder than I'd intended. Don't try to explain it. Don't try to minimize it. I know exactly what you did. You and Rebecca stole from me for 6 years. You made nearly $100,000. You planned to transfer the deed so I'd never find out. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? She looked at her hands. Rebecca came to me in 2018. She said you'd put the condo in your name but never used it. Just sat there, empty. She thought it was wasteful. She wanted to rent it out, make some money, help with her expenses. She asked me to help set it up. And you said yes. I needed the money, Don. My divorce left me with nothing. I was working retail for $12 an hour. Rebecca offered me half of everything. It seemed like stealing. It seemed like stealing. It seemed like using an empty property that wasn't hurting anyone. It was hurting me. Every dollar you took was mine. You never noticed. 6 years, Don. 6 years. And you never once asked about property taxes or maintenance or anything. You didn't care about that apartment. Because I didn't know I owned it. I sat down across from her. Rebecca told me it was temporary, that she'd take over the mortgage, that it was just paperwork. I signed because she asked me to, because she was my daughter, and I trusted her. Nora wiped her eyes. Real tears or performance, I couldn't tell anymore. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't return $193,000. I don't have it. It's gone. Rent, bills, car payments. I used it to survive. While I paid your cell phone bill. While I loaned you money for your furnace repair. While I covered your insurance deductible after you hit that deer. She flinched. I know. You were stealing from me with one hand and taking loans from me with the other. I'll pay you back, somehow. I'll get a second job. There's $47,000 in the Compass Holdings account right now. I want it. All of it. That's not just my half. Rebecca's half is in there too. Rebecca's dead. Tyler's dead. That money goes to their estate, which I'm the executor of. Either way, it comes to me. Don, please. That money is all I have. If you take it, I lose my apartment. I can't afford first and last month somewhere new. I'll be homeless. You should have thought about that 6 years ago. I'm your sister. You were my sister. Now you're just someone who stole from me. She stood. If you do this, we're done. You understand that? You'll have your money, but you'll lose your family. I already lost my family. Rebecca's dead. You helped her rob me. There's nothing left to lose. Nora walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the knob. For what it's worth, Rebecca felt guilty. Near the end, she wanted to tell you, wanted to make it right somehow. But she didn't. No, she didn't. Nora left. Her car started, backed out of my driveway, disappeared down the street. I sat alone in my living room as the light failed outside. The house settled around me. Creaking floors, humming refrigerator, the sound of wind picking up. My phone buzzed. Text from Mark, motion drafted. Filing at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Don't contact your sister. Too late for that. But maybe it didn't matter. The legal machinery was in motion now. Freeze the account. File the IRS report. Document everything. Let the system handle what I couldn't. I walked to my bedroom. Opened the closet. On the top shelf, in a box I hadn't touched in 3 years, I found my wife's jewelry. Not much. A wedding ring, a pair of earrings, a necklace I'd given her for our 20th anniversary. I'd planned to give these to Rebecca someday. Pass them down. Keep the family connected across generations. Now I didn't know what to do with them. I put the box back, closed the closet door. That night I sat at my kitchen table with Rebecca's laptop open in front of me. I went through the emails again, slowly this time, looking for anything I'd missed. Any indication that Rebecca had second thoughts. Any sign that she'd planned to confess. In an email from August 2024, 2 months before she died, she'd written to Nora, "Sometimes I think about telling him, just coming clean, taking whatever consequences. But then I think about losing the house, losing everything, and I can't do it. Not guilt, exactly. Just fear of consequences. In September, Dad's been asking about my finances. Says I should save more, invest better. If he only knew. In October, 5 days before the accident, let's talk about the exit strategy. In person. This email trail makes me nervous. They never had that conversation. The accident came first. I closed the laptop, made coffee, didn't drink it, watched it go cold. At 9:47 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mr. Marsh, this is Detective Sarah Kim, Chicago PD. I'm calling about a fraud report filed by your attorney, Mark Stedman. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Yes. I've reviewed the documentation, the emails, the bank records, the lease agreements. This appears to be a fairly straightforward case of property fraud and tax evasion. I'd like to bring you in for a formal statement tomorrow, if possible. I'll be there. One question before we hang up. Your sister, Nora Hartwell. Has she made any threats? Any indication she might flee? I thought about Nora sitting on my couch. Her tears, her pleas, her final words at the door. No threats, but she knows I know. She might run. We'll prioritize the account freeze. With luck, we'll have it locked down before she can access it. Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Marsh. Detective, if she does run, will you go after her? That depends. Do you want us to? The same question Mark asked. The same decision. I'll think about it, I said. Don't think too long. She hung up. I sat at the kitchen table until midnight. Then I went to bed without undressing. Lay there in the dark, listened to wind against the windows, to the first snow beginning to fall. Somewhere in Chicago, $47,000 sat in an account that would be frozen by morning. Somewhere in the city, my sister was probably packing a bag or calling a lawyer or staring at her own ceiling wondering what came next. And somewhere under cold ground, my daughter was gone. Beyond questions, beyond justice, beyond anything I could do to her or for her. I closed my eyes. Tomorrow, the law would move. Forms would be filed. Accounts would freeze. Systems would engage. Tonight, I just needed to stop thinking. The account froze at 10:22 a.m. on Friday. Mark called me from his office, voice carrying satisfaction he tried to keep professional. Judge signed the order. Chase Bank has locked the Compass Holdings account pending resolution of ownership dispute. $47,380, untouchable until the court says otherwise. I was standing in my kitchen, looking out at my backyard. 3 inches of snow had fallen overnight. The fence posts wore white caps. Bird tracks crossed the yard in neat lines. How long until it's released to me? I asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. We need a hearing to establish your sole ownership of the property and therefore rightful claim to rental proceeds. It's procedural. The evidence is overwhelming, but courts move slowly. And Nora? She can't access the account. If she tries, the bank will notify us and the police. Detective Kim has flagged it. Has she tried? Not yet, but it's only been an hour. After we hung up, I made coffee. Drank it standing up. The house felt larger than usual. Emptier. I'd lived here for 34 years, raised Rebecca here, buried my wife from here. Now it was just me and the echoes. My phone rang at 11:15. Nora. I let it go to voicemail. At 11:18 she called again. Voicemail. At 11:22, a text. Dawn, please, we need to talk. It's important. At 11:30, another call. This time I answered. What do you want, Nora? The account's frozen. You froze it. Yes, Dawn, that's my money. I need it. My rent is due next week. I have bills. Should have thought about that before you stole from me for 6 years. I didn't steal. I was Rebecca's partner. We had an agreement. You had an agreement to commit fraud against me. Silence. Then, can we meet in person? I can't do this over the phone. There's nothing to discuss. Please, Don. One conversation. After that, if you still want to take everything, fine. But give me a chance to explain. I looked out the window. A cardinal landed on the fence, bright red against white snow. Where? Anywhere. Your house, my apartment, a coffee shop. Lou Mitchell's downtown, 1 hour. I'll be there. I hung up and called Mark immediately. I'm meeting Nora at Lou Mitchell's in an hour. Donald, I told you not to. I know, but I need to do this. A long pause. Record the conversation. Your phone has a voice memo app. Use it, and don't make any promises. Don't agree to anything. Just listen. I will. If she offers to return money, get it in writing. Email, text, something documented. Verbal agreements mean nothing. Understood. I drove to Chicago in the Civic I'd owned for 12 years. The heater rattled. The radio only worked on AM. Rebecca used to joke about this car. Said I should buy something newer, something that didn't sound like it was dying. I'd always meant to. Never did. Lou Mitchell's was crowded. Friday lunch rush. I found a booth in the back, ordered coffee I didn't want, and waited. Nora arrived at 12:47. She looked like she hadn't slept. Hair pulled back hastily. No makeup. Same blue coat from yesterday, wrinkled now. She slid into the booth across from me. "Thank you for coming," she said. I said nothing. "Don, I know you're angry. I know I hurt you. But I need you to understand something. This wasn't about hurting you. It was about survival. Survival. Yes, after the divorce, I had nothing. Gary took the house, the savings, everything. I was 59 years old, working retail, living in a studio apartment I could barely afford. When Rebecca came to me with this opportunity, it felt like a lifeline. It was theft. It was a rental property you didn't know you had. We weren't taking money out of your pocket. We were using something you weren't using. I owned it. The rent was mine. You never even asked about it. For 16 years you had that deed and never once thought about it. It was just paper to you. I leaned forward. Because Rebecca told me it was temporary. She lied to me, Nora, and you helped her do it. I know. Her voice cracked. I know, and I'm sorry. But Dawn, if you take that $47,000, I lose everything. My apartment, my car, my ability to survive. Is that what you want? Your sister on the street? You put yourself on the street when you decided to steal from family. She wiped her eyes. The waitress came, poured more coffee neither of us would drink, left. How much do you need? I asked. To not be homeless. 6,000. First month, last month, security deposit for a cheaper place. And the other 41,000? I'll work out a payment plan. Give it back over time. 500 a month. It'll take years. But I'll do it. I watched her face, trying to read what was real and what was performance, trying to separate the sister I'd known for 63 years from the woman who'd stolen from me. The police are involved now, I said. Detective Kim. She's reviewing everything, the emails, the bank records, all of it. Nora went pale. You reported me? I reported the fraud. You were part of the fraud. Don, if I get charged, I could go to prison. Is that what you want? I want my money back. So take the money, take all of it, but don't send me to prison, please. Why shouldn't I? Because I'm your sister. Because Mom and Dad raised us to take care of each other. Because despite everything, you know I'm not a bad person. I just made bad choices. For 6 years. Yes, for 6 years. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I sat back. The booth's vinyl was cracked, patched with duct tape. The restaurant smelled like bacon and coffee and the accumulated weight of 1,000 conversations. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to sign a document acknowledging the fraud. You're going to agree to surrender all claims to the Compass Holdings account, and you're going to pay me back the $84,000 you received, every dollar. I don't have $84,000. Then you'll work out a payment plan. Real payments, not promises, legally binding. Miss one payment, and I take everything to the prosecutor. How much time do I have? To pay it all? 5 years? $1,400 a month? She closed her eyes. I can't afford that. Then get a second job. Sell your car. Move somewhere cheaper. Figure it out. And if I do all this, you won't press charges? I'll ask Detective Kim to close the investigation. I'll tell her we reached a private settlement. What she does with that information is up to her. So I might still get charged. Yes. Nora looked down at her coffee. You've really thought this through. I had a lot of time to think. What about Rebecca? Are you going to hate her memory too? The question landed harder than she probably intended. I thought about Rebecca at 8, learning to ride a bike in our driveway. Rebecca at 16, crying after her first breakup. Rebecca at 22, asking for help she'd turn into a weapon. I don't know yet, I said. Nora nodded slowly. When do you need my answer? Today. Sign the agreement or face criminal charges. Those are your options. You're not giving me much choice. You didn't give me any choice when you decided to rob me. She stood. I need to think. You have until 5 p.m. After that, Detective Kim gets everything, and I let the system handle it. Dawn, 5 p.m. Nora, she left. I sat alone in the booth for another 20 minutes, finished my cold coffee, left money on the table for both our meals. Outside, the snow had stopped. The sky was clearing. That particular Chicago brightness that comes after storms, when everything looks scrubbed clean and new. I drove home slowly, took side streets instead of the highway, passed through neighborhoods I'd lived in decades ago, when Rebecca was small and my wife was alive and the future seemed like something you could plan for. At 4:13 p.m., my phone buzzed. Email from Nora's address. Subject line, agreement. I opened it. Don, I'll sign whatever you need me to sign. I'll pay the $84,000 over 5 years, $1,400 per month starting February 1st. I'll surrender all claims to the Compass account. I know this doesn't fix what I did. I know you'll probably never trust me again. But I'm grateful you're giving me a chance to make it right without destroying my life completely. I'll come by tomorrow to sign paperwork. Let me know what time works. Nora. I forwarded the email to Mark with a note. Draft the agreement. Make it airtight. He called me 5 minutes later. She caved. Yes. Smart move on your part. This way you get restitution without the uncertainty of a criminal trial. And if she defaults, you can always pursue charges later. When can you have the agreement ready? Monday morning. I'll include provisions for missed payments, interest on the outstanding balance, and a confession of judgment clause. If she misses more than 2 payments, you can go straight to garnishment without another hearing. Good. Donald, I have to ask, are you satisfied with this outcome? I looked out my kitchen window. The cardinal was back on the fence. The same bird, or a different one. I couldn't tell. Ask me in 5 years, I said. That night I sat in my living room with all the lights off. The house was quiet. No TV, no music. Just the sound of the furnace cycling and the refrigerator humming. I thought about Nora signing papers tomorrow. Thought about checks arriving every month for 60 months. Thought about the apartment in Chicago, sitting empty now, waiting to be sold or rented legitimately or left vacant. Thought about Rebecca, gone before any of this could be confronted, before she could confess or apologize or face what she'd built. My phone buzzed. Text from Detective Kim. Received notice of private settlement. Are you requesting we close our investigation? I typed, yes. Civil matter resolved between family. 3 dots appeared. Then, understood. Case closed. Hope you got what you needed. Did I get what I needed? I got my money back. Most of it. Eventually. Over time. But Rebecca was still dead. Nora was still a thief. And I was still sitting alone in a house that felt too big, wondering how much of my family had been real and how much had been performance. I deleted Detective Kim's message, turned off my phone, sat in the dark until I couldn't remember what I was thinking about anymore. Tomorrow Nora would sign papers. Monday the court would release the account. In 2 weeks I'd receive the first payment. In 5 years I'd be whole again, at least financially. Tonight I was just tired. I went to bed at 9 p.m., pulled the covers up, listened to wind against the windows. Somewhere in the city, systems were closing files and marking cases resolved. Somewhere money was being transferred and accounts were being settled. And somewhere my sister was probably crying or angry or relieved or all 3 at once. I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to sleep. The first check arrived on February 3rd, $1,400. Personal check, Nora's handwriting, my name spelled correctly. Memo line, payment 1 of 60. I deposited it without calling her. The second check came March 1st, on time. Same amount, same handwriting. April, May, June. Each one arrived within the first 3 days of the month. Each one cleared. Nora was keeping her word, at least so far. By June, I'd received $7,000. 83% of what I'd get from the frozen Compass Holdings account, which the court had finally released to me in March after a perfunctory hearing where no one contested my claim. Total recovered so far, $54,380, still owed $77,000. In 5 years, if Nora never missed a payment, I'd have recovered everything she took. The math was clean, the outcome was certain, but it didn't feel like winning. Patricia Fleming called me in early June about the apartment. "Mr. Marsh, I have an interested buyer, cash offer, $362,000. They want to close quickly." "How quickly?" 30 days. They're relocating from California, tech worker, needs a place by July 1st. I sat in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, looking at the Northwestern mug I still hadn't thrown away. "Let me think about it." "Mr. Marsh, it's a strong offer. Market's softening. I wouldn't wait too long. I'll call you tomorrow." I hung up and stared at nothing for a while. The house was quiet. It was always quiet now. I'd stopped turning on the TV, stopped playing music. The silence felt appropriate somehow, like the right soundtrack for this particular season of life. That afternoon I drove to Chicago one last time. The building at 847 North Wood Street looked the same. Coffee shop, dry cleaner, vintage clothing store, the gray door between them. I used my key. The elevator rattled upward. 8th floor, Unit 8F. Sarah Chen had moved out in March, new tenant now, according to the building manager, a graduate student named Marcus. I'd signed a proper lease this time. First month, last month, security deposit. Everything documented. Everything legal. I knocked. No answer. He was probably at class or work. I used my key. The apartment had changed. Different furniture, different smell, coffee and textbooks and the particular scent of someone young living alone. Marcus had put up posters, bands I didn't recognize, a periodic table, a photograph of mountains I couldn't identify. But the bones of the space were the same. The kitchen to the left, the living area straight ahead, the bedroom door beyond, the window overlooking other buildings, fire escapes, the city continuing without caring who lived here or what had happened here. I walked to the window. The pigeon was back, or a different pigeon. They all looked the same to me. Below, people moved along the sidewalk. Woman with a stroller, man on a bicycle, 2 teenagers sharing earbuds, normal lives, normal Friday afternoon in late June. 6 years of strangers had lived here, paid rent to a company that didn't exist, to a daughter who'd used my trust as infrastructure for theft. And I'd never known, never suspected, never thought to ask the questions that would have revealed everything. How much of life works that way? How much happens just outside our awareness, in spaces we think we understand but don't? I thought about Rebecca at 8, learning to ride a bike. At 16, crying over her first breakup. At 22, asking for help with paperwork. At 38, dying on a highway before any of this could be confronted. Which version was real? All of them? None of them? I didn't know anymore. My phone rang. Patricia Fleming. "Mr. Marsh, have you made a decision about the offer?" "I'll take it." "Wonderful. I'll draw up the paperwork. We can close by July 15th. That's fine. Are you all right? You sound..." "I'm fine. Just saying goodbye to something." "I understand. It's hard. Selling a property with family history." She didn't understand. Not really, but I appreciated the sentiment. "I'll send the contracts over this weekend," she said. "Review them and get them back to me by Wednesday." "I will." I hung up and stood in the apartment a while longer. Afternoon light slanted through the window, casting shadows that moved slowly across the floor. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere above me, someone's footsteps crossed their unit. Normal sounds, normal life. This apartment would continue existing after I sold it. Marcus would finish his degree and move out. Someone else would move in. The building would stand. The city would continue. Nothing about this place would remember what happened here. Only I would remember. I locked the door behind me, took the elevator down, walked out into June afternoon heat. The coffee shop was busy. Through the window, I could see people working on laptops, drinking cold brew, living their Fridays. I got in my car and drove home. The contracts arrived on Saturday. I signed them at my kitchen table. initialed every page. Put them back in the envelope. Drove to the post office Monday morning and sent them certified mail. The closing happened on July 12th, a Tuesday. Mark handled most of it. I just had to sign final documents and accept the wire transfer. After fees and taxes, I netted $308,000. Combined with the Compass Holdings recovery and Nora's payments, I'd now recouped about 70% of what was stolen, plus gained the sale price I should have controlled all along. The math worked. The ledger was balancing. In 4.5 years, if Nora kept paying, I'd be whole. But Rebecca would still be dead, and I'd still be alone. I deposited the money in a high-yield savings account. 3.4% annual interest. Safe. Boring. The kind of financial decision I'd made for 40 years. That night I made dinner. Chicken breast, steamed broccoli, rice. Ate it at the kitchen table while reading a library book about the Civil War. Washed the dishes. Put them in the drying rack. Turned off the lights. Went to bed at 9:30. Normal evening. Normal routine. But something had shifted. Some weight I'd been carrying had redistributed itself. Not gone. I didn't think it would ever be gone. But different. More manageable. At the end of July, Nora's check arrived on time. August, same. September. She never called, never texted, just sent the checks like clockwork. Payment 6 of 60, payment 7 of 60, payment 8 of 60. In September, I got a letter from Owen Voss, Tyler's brother, the one who'd flown in from Phoenix for the funeral. Mr. Marsh, I heard through mutual friends what Rebecca and Tyler were doing with your property. I'm sorry. Tyler was my brother, and I loved him. But what they did was wrong. I didn't know about any of it until after they died. If I had known, I would have said something. For what that's worth. I hope you're doing okay. Owen. I read it twice. Filed it in the drawer with all the other documents from this mess. Didn't respond. What would I say? Thank you for the sympathy I don't need. It's okay, even though it's not. Your brother helped steal from me, but at least you feel bad about it? There was nothing to say. In October, a year after Rebecca died, I drove to the cemetery. First time since the funeral. I brought nothing. No flowers, no letter, no symbolic gesture. Just stood there, looking at the headstone. Rebecca Lynn Marsh, 1986, 2024. Beloved daughter. The grass had grown over the grave, made it look like all the others. Just another rectangle of earth with a stone marker. Nothing special. Nothing that marked this particular betrayal or this particular loss. I stood there for maybe 10 minutes. A groundskeeper was mowing in the distance. The sound carried across the cemetery in waves, rising and falling, mechanical and predictable. I don't know how to remember you, I said out loud. To the stone, to the ground, to nothing. I don't know which version was real. The stone didn't answer. The grass didn't move. The groundskeeper kept mowing. After a while, I walked back to my car and drove home. November came, then December. The checks kept arriving. $1,400. Every month. No note, no apology, just payment. By the end of the year, I'd received $15,400 from Nora. Combined with everything else, I'd recovered just over half of what was stolen. In 25 more months, I'd have it all. And then what? I thought about that question a lot in December, late at night, sitting in my living room with the lights off. What happens when the debt is paid? When the ledger balances? When the system has processed everything and closed all the files? I'd have my money. I'd have my justice. I'd have the satisfaction of knowing I'd done everything correctly and legally and properly. But I'd still be 66 years old. Still living alone in a house built for a family that didn't exist anymore. Still eating dinner by myself and going to bed at 9:30 and waking up to empty rooms. The money wouldn't fix that. The justice wouldn't fix that. Nothing would fix that. On December 31st, I sat at my kitchen table and made a list. Not a resolution, just an inventory. Things I know. Rebecca stole from me. Nora helped her. I will recover most of the money. This will take 4 more years. Rebecca can never apologize. Nora will never be my sister again. I am alone. Things I don't know. Whether Rebecca felt guilty, whether she would have confessed eventually, whether any of our relationship was real, whether I should have seen the signs. What I'm supposed to do with the rest of my life, I folded the paper and put it in the drawer with everything else. The lease agreements, the bank statements, the emails, Owen's letter, the closing documents from the apartment sale, evidence of betrayal, Evidence of justice, evidence of a family that had fallen apart so gradually I hadn't noticed until it was too late. At midnight, fireworks went off somewhere in the neighborhood. I could hear them through the windows. Distant pops and whistles, people celebrating the new year, new beginnings, fresh starts. I turned off the kitchen light, walked upstairs, got ready for bed. In the morning, January 1st, I'd wake up and make coffee and eat breakfast and continue living. The same way I'd been living for a year. The same way I'd probably keep living for years to come. Nora's check would arrive in 2 days, payment 12 of 60. The cycle would continue, the debt would shrink, the calendar would advance, and somewhere in the middle of all that routine and repetition and forward motion, maybe I'd figure out what to do with a life that had been cleared of everything except space. But not tonight. Tonight I just needed to sleep. I pulled the covers up, listened to the house settle around me, heard distant fireworks fading into silence, closed my eyes, and waited for morning.